We start with the 7 News alert. The Call 7 investigators first to uncover thousands of dental patients possibly exposed to deadly diseases like hepatitis and HIV. Investigators say the 8,000 people at risk were all patients of this man, Stephen Stein, who's now accused of using dirty syringes. The Call 7 investigators covering every angle of this story. Marshall Zellinger talking to a patient, Kelly Raybon uncovering why it took months for many to be notified of the threat. But we start with John Ferrugia, who first started asking questions of the state health department. John, you're learning all these patients must now undergo testing.
That's right, Teresa. We now know that Dr. Stephen Stein had records of about 8,000 patients. And the state health department says that at least that many people need to have their blood tested now for potentially deadly diseases. Dr. Stephen Stein is an oral surgeon who practiced in Highlands Ranch and at this office in Cherry Creek. Health investigators say when patients were undergoing dental surgery, Stein would reuse syringes from patient to patient, thereby potentially exposing them to HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C.
Any patients who have come in contact with this surgical practice that may have gotten IV medication during a surgical procedure, that they're at risk of getting those 3 infections.
State health department officials admit they have no idea of the total number of patients potentially exposed because they don't have access to or know how many total patient records there might be. But today, the department sent out 8,000 letters to Stein's former patients who have been potentially exposed to deadly viruses. Dr. Michelle Barron, an epidemiologist at the University of Colorado Hospital who is not associated with the investigation, says there is no way to know who or if anyone is infected because right now they may not feel sick.
Only a subset of people, when they're infected with hepatitis, will go on to develop chronic disease, and that too, again, may be 10 years before they start showing signs of liver damage.
Stein is no longer in professional practice. Now, the state health department says it found out about Stein in April and immediately began to investigate, looking at records and interviewing former staff members of the office. Bottom line, if Stephen Stein was your doctor, call your family doctor or your clinic and get tested. Live in the newsroom, I'm John Ferrugia, 7 News.
Now, many of Stein's former patients are reaching out to 7 News. Our team coverage continues with 7 News reporter Marshall Zellinger live at Stein's former practice in Highlands Ranch. Marshall, you spoke with a patient who found out about this from our Facebook page.
Shannon Stamey came to this office near C470 in Quebec 4 years ago. She got a dental implant. She was put under and given an IV. She didn't find out about her potential health risk from any oral surgeon or from the state, but rather from us.
I'm just very angry for everyone else that has to go through this.
Shannon Stamey was a patient of Dr. Stephen Stein 4 years ago. She saw him at his Highlands Ranch office, which was inside this medical pavilion.
I immediately actually began shaking. I was with my young son. I talked to my husband on the phone. Definitely instant denial.
Shannon already knows she's likely in the clear. She has a weakened immune system and was tested for HIV and hepatitis in May.
I definitely can't imagine waiting to go into a doctor's office and get tested and waiting for those results. That'd be very stressful.
Stein had an office in Cherry Creek. Patients who saw him between August 2010 and June 2011 need to be tested. Here at his Highlands Ranch office, patients who saw him between September 1999 and June 2011 need to be tested. The investigation into Stein began after someone reported unsafe needle injections.
I don't really understand how someone could do that or why you would do that and why no one would speak up for 12 years.
Those stairs inside the door lead to Stein's former dental practice, which was sold to another oral surgeon last year. It was right by the base of those stairs where I spoke with someone in the current office. She said this was all a shock to them. I asked if they were going to be sending out letters with patients who were with Dr. Stein and are now with the doctor that is here. She said she really didn't know what was going to be done. Reporting live in Highlands Ranch, Marshall Zellinger, 7 News.
The Call 7 investigators uncovering the state knew for months of the threat facing thousands of patients. Call 7 investigator Kelly Raybon is live now. And Kelly, you found out what the state knew and when, and you had to dig into Dr. Stein's disciplinary history to do it.
We sure did, Teresa. The agency that regulates dentists suspended his practice on June 2011 on a different matter. But the program director for the Department of Regulatory Agencies says during that review, investigators discovered allegations that Dr. Stein was reusing needles on patients. In the original action from 2011, the state found the public health, safety, or welfare imperatively requires emergency action. Because of privacy issues, the state won't release details about the complaint to Call 7. But they did tell us that in April of this year, they informed public health about the doctor possibly reusing needles on patients.
Like I said, it's related but unrelated. It's hard to talk about because I can't go into detail, but the information that was provided to them, as soon as we found out about that information, it was time to report it to them.
Now, under this agreement, Dr. Stein cannot practice dentistry, but can still hold a license in Colorado because no final action has been taken in that 2011 complaint. Reporting live tonight, I'm Call 7 investigator Kelly Rapon.
The Call 7 team staying on top of this one. If you were a patient of Dr. Stein's, here's a number that you should take note of and call. It's there for you, 1-877-462-2911. There's also more set up on the State Health Department's website, and you can find a link to that on our website, thedenverchannel.com. It's in the top stories on our homepage.